She was the picture of perfection. Elaine Carter, a beloved teacher, devoted wife, and pillar of her community. He was just a student. Ryan McConnell, quiet, ambitious, and barely 17. But when he accused her of seducing him, the story that unfolded shattered more than reputations. It exposed obsession, deception, and a chilling digital trail that would leave one of them in ruins, and the other hiding a dangerous secret. In the peaceful suburb of Willowbrook, nestled between winding country roads and modest neighborhoods, life moved at a calm, predictable pace. It was the kind of town where everyone knew each other's name, and scandals were rare enough to be whispered about for years. Among the familiar faces of the community was Mrs. Elaine Carter, a 36-year-old high school English teacher who had, for nearly a decade, built a reputation for excellence. She wore elegance like second skin, always dressed neatly, always on time, and always carrying an air of calm authority that made students respect her without needing to raise her voice. Elaine lived in a charming two-story house near the school with her husband, Dr. Andrew Carter, a well-known local physician. Together, they represented what many considered the perfect couple: successful, stable, and admired. On weekends, they attended charity events, hosted dinner parties, and volunteered at school functions. Elaine often brought homemade baked goods to PTA meetings and spearheaded book drives for underfunded schools. At Willowbrook High School, she was seen as more than just an educator. Students loved her for how she made literature come alive, for how she stayed after school to help with essays, and for how she remembered birthdays and small personal details. Parents trusted her with their children. Her colleagues envied her composure and her students' performance. There was never a complaint lodged against her in her entire career. That's why, when a shocking allegation surfaced in early March, the town's collective disbelief was almost immediate. A 17-year-old senior, Ryan McConnell, stepped forward with a story that would fracture the school's sense of safety. He claimed he had been having a secret, inappropriate relationship with Elaine for the past 6 months. He described meeting her after school, exchanging intimate messages, and even visiting her home when her husband was away. The accusation sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community. Elaine's supporters quickly dismissed the claim as the imagination of a troubled teen. Elaine didn't remain silent. She immediately issued a public statement through her lawyer, calling the accusations baseless, sick, and destructive. She said Ryan had become obsessed with her after she tried to help him with his grades. According to her, he had misread her support as something more and had started following her after school. She described feeling uncomfortable but didn't report it, thinking it was just a phase. Her husband stood beside her during the first few days, vowing to support her through what they described as a vicious attack. The school suspended both parties while authorities launched an investigation. In interviews, Ryan appeared confident, even defiant. He said he had proof. People began to whisper in grocery stores and coffee shops. Students were divided. Some defended Elaine, while others said Ryan had been acting strangely for months. Still, most couldn't believe that a woman like Elaine Carter could be capable of something so reckless, so dangerous. But the story was only just beginning. And the truth, as Willowbrook would soon learn, wasn't as simple as it seemed. As the investigation into the claims against Elaine Carter intensified, the town of Willowbrook found itself gripped by uncertainty. The school district, local authorities, and even the media were cautious at first, largely siding with Elaine's polished reputation and the unlikeliness of such an accusation being true. Ryan McConnell's claim was bold, but many still believed it was rooted in fantasy or revenge. That belief began to shift when Ryan handed a flash drive to the police, one that, he said, contained undeniable evidence of everything he had alleged. The contents of the flash drive were unsettling. Investigators uncovered hundreds of digital messages between Ryan and someone who appeared to be using Elaine's private email and a hidden messaging app account. The tone of the messages varied, some flirtatious, others intimate, and a few bordering on threatening. There were late-night exchanges, expressions of affection, and even detailed plans for secret meetups. Alongside the messages were several explicit photographs that, while blurry and low resolution, seemed to resemble Elaine in both physical features and setting. One photo showed a woman, partially clothed, in what looked like Elaine's recognizable kitchen. Same countertop, same backsplash tile, same patterned curtains. The response was immediate. The school board placed Elaine on indefinite administrative leave, and local law enforcement obtained a warrant to search her home and digital devices. Elaine and her legal team responded with outrage. They claimed the materials were fabricated using common technology now available to anyone. They insisted that Ryan had used social media photos and publicly available content to create a false narrative. Elaine maintained that she had never messaged Ryan outside of school channels and had certainly never sent or posed for the explicit images now being circulated. Despite the pushback, police proceeded with their search. They seized her laptop, her personal phone, and several storage drives found in her home office. At this point, public opinion began to shift. Neighbors who had once defended Elaine with complete certainty were now quiet. Some began to ask uncomfortable questions. If Elaine was truly innocent, why hadn't she reported Ryan's alleged stalking earlier? Why did she have separate social media accounts under aliases not even her closest friends knew about? Digital forensics specialists were called in to examine both the materials Ryan had turned in and Elaine's confiscated devices. Early findings only deepened the mystery. On Elaine's phone, investigators found deleted messages that matched the tone of those on the flash drive, but they were incomplete and scattered. Her email showed strange login attempts from unknown IP addresses, which her lawyer used to argue that her accounts had been hacked. Meanwhile, her search history revealed multiple visits to forums discussing how to block, hide, or erase private content from messaging apps. What had started as a single student's accusation had now evolved into a full-scale digital war zone, with Elaine's life under a microscope. The evidence wasn't conclusive yet, but it was enough to rattle the image of the beloved teacher. People were no longer asking whether something had happened. They were now asking how much had happened and why. The digital trail continued to twist in unexpected directions, but it was what investigators found buried deep within Elaine Carter's personal laptop that took the case into darker territory. While combing through files, authorities stumbled upon a password-protected folder labeled simply private. After decrypting it, the contents revealed dozens of high-resolution photos and short video clips showing Elaine in intimate settings with a man who wasn't her husband, and who certainly wasn't Ryan McConnell. The man was later identified as Jason Miles, a 28-year-old personal trainer who worked at a fitness center several towns away. According to timestamps on the images, the affair had been ongoing for over a year, overlapping with the time Ryan claimed his relationship with Elaine had taken place. The videos, many filmed in hotel rooms and sometimes even in her classroom after hours, suggested a double life Elaine had managed to keep hidden from both her husband and her colleagues. This revelation didn't directly connect her to Ryan, but it shattered the pristine public image she had worked so hard to maintain. Elaine's husband, Dr. Andrew Carter, was reportedly blindsided. He had stood by her when the allegations first emerged, publicly supporting her innocence. But after the discovery of her secret affair, he filed for a legal separation and moved out of their home within a week. Elaine's support system was crumbling fast. Her legal team stopped giving public statements, and her neighbors stopped waving from across the street. Students who had once defended her on social media began deleting their posts or going quiet altogether. Meanwhile, public opinion toward Ryan McConnell shifted again. For some, the discovery of Elaine's affair added weight to his claims. If she could lie to her husband and hide a year-long relationship from everyone around her, could she also be hiding a relationship with a student? For others, the lines were becoming blurred. There was still no direct connection between the material in the private R folder and Ryan's accusations, but the damage to Elaine's credibility was undeniable. At the same time, Ryan's mental health was called into question. A court-ordered psychiatric evaluation painted a complicated picture. One specialist said he displayed symptoms of delusional thinking and emotional dependency, suggesting that he may have misinterpreted Elaine's attention in class as romantic. Another expert, hired by Ryan's attorney, argued the opposite, that Ryan was lucid, consistent in his story, and showing signs of trauma rather than fabrication. These conflicting evaluations only deepened the mystery. Elaine remained insistent that Ryan was a disturbed young man who had developed an unhealthy fixation. She claimed she had never been alone with him outside school and had no knowledge of how he could have obtained such realistic-looking messages and photos. But every new layer of information pushed the case further into a gray area, where truth and lies were becoming harder to separate. With her marriage over and her professional reputation in ruins, Elaine faced a new, more personal trial. The evidence wasn't damning enough to convict, but it was strong enough to destroy everything she had built. And still, the most damning piece of proof had yet to surface. Just as the case seemed to stall in a cloud of conflicting evidence and public confusion, A startling breakthrough emerged from an unlikely source: Ryan's mother. Desperate to protect her son and document what she believed to be a dangerous truth, she had been quietly recording anything that might help prove his innocence. In doing so, she uncovered a small, nearly forgotten device, a compact hidden camera that Ryan had once tucked into the front pocket of his backpack. Originally placed there as a precaution, the camera had been recording footage passively for weeks before the battery died. She handed the device over to Ryan's attorney, who submitted it to investigators. Most of the footage was unremarkable: hallway chatter, car rides, and street corners. But one particular clip, dated 2 months before the accusations became public, caught everyone's attention. The grainy nighttime video, captured from the passenger seat of Ryan's parked car, showed the front of Elaine Carter's home. Around 2:04 a.m., a figure stepped into the frame. The person's height, posture, and distinctive walk strongly resembled Elaine. She approached the driver's side of Ryan's car, leaned in close to the window, and stayed there for just over a minute. The angle didn't allow for clear audio or facial recognition, but investigators confirmed that the clothing, hairstyle, and frame matched Elaine's general appearance. The timestamp and location data matched the claim Ryan had made weeks earlier, that Elaine had met him outside her home late at night. This new footage contradicted Elaine's earlier statements that she hadn't interacted with Ryan outside of school in nearly a year. When shown the video, she denied it was her and claimed it had been fabricated. Her lawyer argued that the footage could have been digitally altered and pointed out that the face was not visible. However, forensic analysis verified the authenticity of the file. The metadata was intact, the timestamps were real, and the footage hadn't been edited. With this discovery, law enforcement charged Elaine with obstruction of justice and making false statements during a police investigation. The charges weren't related to a confirmed relationship with Ryan, but rather to her efforts to mislead investigators. The school district moved to terminate her employment permanently, citing the breach of ethics and dishonesty. The town of Willowbrook, once a quiet and trusting community, now buzzed with uncertainty and speculation. Some still believed Elaine was being targeted and that Ryan's footage was part of an elaborate setup. Others saw the late-night video as the final piece of the puzzle, proof that something inappropriate had happened, even if it didn't fully match Ryan's original story. Elaine's life had spiraled from control to chaos. Her home was now surrounded by media vans. Former friends avoided eye contact in public. Her bank account was drained from legal fees, and her name was permanently linked to scandal. Yet just when everyone thought the story had reached its most explosive point, a deeper truth was about to surface, one that would turn everything upside down. The arrest of Elaine Carter for obstruction and lying to investigators seemed like the dramatic climax of a case that had already shattered lives. But in a final twist no one could have predicted, the narrative took yet another sharp and disturbing turn, one that would ultimately rewrite everything the town of Willowbrook thought it knew. In the weeks following Elaine's arrest, a team of independent digital forensics experts was hired to conduct a comprehensive analysis of the original flash drive Ryan McConnell had submitted as evidence. What began as a routine check for authenticity quickly escalated into a deeper probe when inconsistencies surfaced in the data structure of several files. Specifically, the metadata on many of the emails and voice recordings didn't line up with their supposed creation dates. Some files appeared to have been created long after Ryan claimed the relationship had ended, raising red flags about their origin. Digging further, investigators traced the IP addresses and device fingerprints used to generate the messages. Shockingly, most of them were linked not to Elaine's accounts or locations, but to Ryan's own home network. A more alarming discovery followed. Several of the explicit images that appeared to depict Elaine had been digitally manipulated using face-swapping software. The base images came from adult websites. Elaine's likeness had been carefully superimposed to make them appear genuine. Authorities were stunned. The once vindicated student was now the prime suspect in an elaborate digital hoax. Ryan had orchestrated the entire scandal using AI tools, spoofed accounts, and deepfake technology. His goal, investigators later theorized, was to punish Elaine after she reportedly rejected his advances and gave him a poor recommendation for college. Ryan was arrested and charged with multiple offenses, including cyber harassment, digital forgery, obstruction of justice, and defamation. Because of his age, he was tried as a juvenile but faced serious consequences, He was sentenced to 3 years in a state juvenile facility with mandatory psychological treatment and strict probation upon release. Elaine Carter was released. Her charges dropped, but the damage was irreversible. Though legally cleared, she had already lost her job, her marriage, her standing in the community, and her peace of mind. She declined all interviews, moved out of Willowbrook, and disappeared from public view. For her, vindication came too late to repair what had been destroyed. The case sent shockwaves through educational and legal communities across the country. It raised questions about the power of technology in shaping or faking reality. It exposed how quickly reputations could be ruined with the click of a mouse and how even the most trusted individuals could become victims of invisible manipulation. In Willowbrook, the dust never fully settled. Parents became more cautious, schools revised policies, and trust, once freely given, became harder to earn. The case of Elaine Carter and Ryan McConnell became more than a scandal. It became a cautionary tale for a digital age where truth is no longer black and white, but often blurred in shades no one sees until it's too late.